Welcome to our webinar today on navigating compliance in A&D with technology. Thank you for giving us your time today. My name is Mary Chris Horan. Creative Technology is the premier Epicor Platinum partner, and we provide powerful solutions that help organizations like yours maximize operational efficiency and maintain compliancy. Our webinar today is the first in a series of 3. Today's episode is on CMMC and contract and quality management. Our speaker today is Karen Delgado. Karen is a solution engineer with Creative. She has an expertise in navigating compliance, and she understands the requirements that companies like yours have with the within the A&D arena. So I'll turn it over to you, Karen.
Thank you, Mary Chris, and thank you everyone for joining us. Nice to have a good turnout today. A little bit on the session and how it's gonna go. I'm gonna take you through some of the content here. We'll walk through some slides, some live software, but definitely feel free throughout the session to ask any questions through the chat. I'll be monitoring that. If I can answer as I go, I will. If not, we have a dedicated section close to the end, especially for Q&A. So I'll be making sure to address that at that point, if at the latest. So I'm going to turn off my camera just for the rest of the session when you guys get a chance to see who you're talking to, and we'll dive right in. So let me kick it off here. So as Mary Chris said, this is our first episode in a series, navigating compliance in aerospace and defense with technology, specifically with some of the functionality created by Creative Technology and Design. But first of all, I want to get some things out of the way, since we're going to be talking about some future roadmap items later on, safe harbor statements, just for everyone's reference. It's required of me to bring that up. And now we can dive right into the content. So I'd like to begin speaking a little bit about CMMC Compliance. And most of you, if not all of you, already understand what it stands for, right? The Cybersecurity Maturity Model Certification. So of course, this was developed by the Department of Defense to make sure that their subcontractors have appropriate cybersecurity levels when they're handling federal contract information and controlled and classified information. Now, there are multiple levels of scrutiny based on the sensitivity of the information handled, and it builds on existing standards like NIST SP 800, 171, and 53. So a lot of what it calls for, you may already have implemented, or are maybe just starting in the journey of implementing, making sure that your systems align with those requirements, especially if you're an active subcontractor with the Department of Defense. So as of today, October 2025, CMMC is real, it is being looked at, and some of the things that we need to be on the lookout for is, your maturity level. And based on our experience in the market, we find that most companies that we work with fall in a level 2, which covers common areas such as access control, who can access the application, the data, having clear audit and accountability records, right? Who is making changes, who is touching the information, who is accessing it. Also having good controls for identification and authentication. So your login information, making sure that's secure and that is properly managed. Also implementing good systems of response for any incidents, having good protection for all your systems and communications, and just general integrity of your solution and whatever technology tools you have in place. So those are the key controls at this level. During an implementation and, as you're going through your CMMC journey, we have experts that can help you assess where you fall as far as the maturity level goes, so that then you can make sure you're ready to undergo any assessments, whether they're a third-party assessor running them. Those are usually required every 3 years, and depending on the sensitivity of the data that your programs handle, you may qualify for self-assessments as well. So all of this, we will help guide you, and if we can support you all the way through on all the requirements as far as identifying your needs. We also have a good team of experts that can help support that. But once you go through those assessments and, you know, as findings are being discovered, then there are plans of actions and milestones that can be implemented and followed to address any gaps and any deficiencies. You usually have a good window of about 180 days to accomplish anything that needs to be improved. So again, a lot of experience kind of in this world, and we'll be happy to be your partner, kind of taking you through this journey. So that's just generally what CMMC stands for and what it's looking for. From a technology standpoint, as it relates to creative and Epicor specifically in the Kinetic application, we look at the different deployment options that are available to support CMMC compliance. And key three, of course, on-prem, very straightforward, your local servers within your walls. Support is available by Creative via subscription, you know, whether it is to maintain the environment or any assistance you may need. We also offered a government cloud instance in Azure. And the third option would be managed or hosted services in a government private cloud, which would be managed by our Creative IT personnel. And it is, of course, hosted in a USA Azure environment. So there's definitely options as far as you know, deploying the application while remaining in that cybersecurity compliance. Now, that's one aspect of it. The other aspect of compliance in this industry, and that it also kind of goes hand in hand with CMMC, is from a functional perspective, right? From a process standpoint, in managing contracts with the government or even non-government entities, right? That are very, very heavy into compliance controls like aerospace. So that's the next portion of our presentation is going to focus a lot on that. So it's really about identifying those common challenges we see in the industry. And we've been working with many businesses, and we kept hearing kind of the similar challenges they would encounter with any ERPs we're working on. They're usually lacking in some of the key compliance requirements, making sure that those were systematically implemented in an application versus handling them offline or manually. So at Creative Technology and Design, we've kind of put together what we call our compliance solution, which incorporates, you know, items to address those common challenges. So I have a couple lists, a couple items listed here. Well, the first one, and very, very common challenge we see, is the ability to track contract compliance specs. And I'm speaking in the context of an ERP, right? You know, you get a government contract or even just a customer and aerospace contract where they're, you know, looking for specific quality requirements to be followed, specific certification to be generated, specific inspection steps or source inspection processes that need to be followed to be, you know, compliant with their contract needs. So tracking those compliance specs usually had to be handled offline, either through notes, through checklist documents that, you know, kind of were updated as the contract progressed. So we've come up with solutions to help address and automate a lot of that contract compliance requirement tracking. So we'll see how that is addressed in Kinetic. Another one would be around material traceability and containment, right? A lot of ERPs provide, you know, lot tracking and things of that nature, but really having a good, simple way to identify where material was used, quickly identified any quality issues down to a serial number, a lot number. How do we provide tools to make that easy to look up by the end user? So we'll talk about solutions around that. Another challenge is around change control and auditability. Who modified what? Why did that change take place? What was the original value within that change? So auditors like to have clear, concise data that points to that change control and that change history. So how does the ERP support that? We'll talk about in a few minutes. First article inspections, making sure that those get completed and that are appropriately and timely requested, as well as identifying controlled and classified information. That's another requirement and challenge that we see. This one specifically relates to CMMC, right? CMMC compliance requires the ability to identify within the system when a data or item, an element, is part of that controlled and classified information category. So how do we solve that? We'll see in a bit. And last 5 challenges here we're going to address. Ability to generate certificates, whether they're specific to aerospace, like our 8130 flight worthiness tags or certificates of conformance. Being able to generate a deliverable document package for your customers. A lot of these usually happens very manually. Someone gathering documents in a folder, making sure they're all compiled correctly, and then, you know, attached to an email. So how do we help support the automation of that? We'll see. Also managing supplier certifications, managing shelf life of materials, you know, making sure that we have protections in place to prevent the use of expired items. And last but not least, having labor controls or labor entry controls around government contracts. So this point, as we address it, it's very specifically applied for contracts that are subject to DCAA, and there are very strict requirements as far as how labor entry needs to be managed and controlled, and who can make changes on time entries as it relates to government contracts. So we'll see how those get addressed. So we have a good, robust list of 10 common challenges here, just to kind of wrap up this section. Now, how do we implement practical strategies and application solutions to address these 10 challenges? We'll see next. So first one is going to be our contract flow down. So this addresses the issue around managing contract specs. So our creative compliance solution allows for the creation of a contract record that references parts that are subject to be delivered as part of that contract, and any clauses required to be followed in relation to that deliverable. So whether it's DFARS, certification requirements, FARs, quality specs, anything that needs to be communicated throughout the supply chain in the execution of the contract, we can establish in the contract level. And it's done upfront, right? Usually as part of the contract review process, you'll establish that early on, and then that contract gets referenced in your sales order, which allows it to flow down to any direct related jobs and other directly related purchase orders. So usually the struggle was, how do I communicate these clauses to my suppliers, right? You would have to remember to note your POs so that suppliers will be made aware of that. So this allows us to automate that, and it actually prints out those clauses and requirements on the PO form itself, as well as other things like a DPAS priority code, the first article inspection requirement, which you can enforce as part of the contract record. And, you know, it just kind of takes that weight off your shoulders. If you've defined it ahead of time, it can be properly automatically handled by the system. So definitely one of our most commonly used features, because it's just universal to government contracts specifically, but also contracts within the aerospace world. Another solution to our challenges is going to be our as-built dashboard and report. So this dashboard is going to essentially do a bill of materials explosion of what you're delivering, right? So you have a finished good, and you can pull up a serial number here and run this dashboard and get a display of everything that went into making that. And it can be a multi-level build, right? As the sample you see here, I have my level 1s, my level 2s, all the way down to 3 if I were to continue to scroll. And it's going to give us a good picture of which suppliers we got these components and materials from, the lot numbers, the serial numbers that went into making this finished good, any references to any non-conformances or DMRs. So good picture of an as-built record. So this addresses a lot of the containment issues, right? So you have very good material traceability, see exactly what went where. So if there was ever a situation or an incident where you have to go and do a recall or something, you'd be able to do a quick lookup, because all this data, all this information resides in our application. And you can generate it in report format, so this can be provided to your customers as part of a deliverable. So they have that information, in their hands. So that's another element here of our compliance solution. Now, as far as auditability, we talked about it in the common challenges. So this is standard Epicor kinetic functionality, and that's the change logs. So it's probably a commonly used tool, but if you implement it on day one when you're using kinetic, and sometimes as you continue to use the system, you forget that they're there, that there's a tool that you can turn on to choose to track any critical fields. So the changelog helps you review a complete list of changes for a selected record in the database. So it displays when the change happened as far as date goes, all the way down to the timestamp, down to the second, the user that made the change, and also the before and after value of the field. So we recommend this functionality a lot for any critical elements like date changes, quantity changes, anything that has an impact in the contract performance, so that you have good traceability of when the change happened, why, and from an auditable standpoint, auditors love that, right? Having an electronic record of when things are being modified, and just having that good audit trail, because it also talks to the security of the system, right? Because you can really prove who has had access to that record and who has made changes to it. So it does give you that peace of mind. So change logs are very important, very recommended. And again, this is part of standard kinetic. So I like to emphasize that, because most of what I'm bringing up is part of our compliance solution. So this is something that you get just by utilizing the ERP. Now, going back to our challenges, corrective actions. So corrective actions, this is a more of a quality element that is part of the ERP, right? We have quality issue, we need to implement corrective actions. A common challenge in this area was, having the ability to follow up with actionable items. So we've enhanced the standard corrective action solution to incorporate the concept of workflows or task sets that allow you to assign specific activities to members of your team, so that they can follow through in the execution of the correction. And it also helps to track additional root causes. So it provides just more robust data elements as far as what was actually implemented to correct those behaviors and improve your quality performance. And this is, of course, applicable for both internal quality incidents as well as supplier corrective action requests. Another element here related to quality that is a common challenge is the ability to document, first of all, when first article inspections are required, whether they're part of a contract specification or just part of your natural quality cycle. So the compliance solution allows for tracking the first article target goal at the part rev level. So what do I mean by that? At the part revision, you can say this revision is going to be FAI tracked. And you're going to have a horizon set up in your system that says, if I haven't inspected it, if I haven't manufactured it or purchased it in X number of days, then I need the next transaction to be flagged for first article inspection. So that could be a purchase order for a purchased item, or it could be a job for a manufactured item. So those records will automatically get that flag activated, so that your suppliers or your team in production is aware of that need, and they can implement the appropriate inspection processes for that record. If the requirement comes directly from the customer contract, then that takes precedence, right? And any related POs, any related jobs in service of that contract will automatically get that flag, even if the part rev hasn't reached its threshold. So You have different ways to do that. And the reason this is important, and going back to the challenges, is that without this solution in the ERP, someone would have to do that review manually. Okay, let's go look at the history of the item. When was the last time we purchased it? When was the last time we made it? And make sure that first article inspection was required. So it's something that a person would usually would have had to validate and implement. So now we can have it be system driven. So another task of our shoulders, and again, ensuring that our quality processes are being followed systematically. Another challenge here we can address is around CUI flags. So our controlled and classified information, mentioned it in the challenges. This is also part of a CMMC requirement. So these flags have been added to both part maintenance and the document type screens to help identify those records as CUI. As of right now, that's really just an identifier, and that's kind of paving the way for future enhancements where we could help support access controls based on those flags. As of right now, again, they're just identifiers, and that kind of helps us meet that minimum requirement right now around the CMMC compliance needs. So it is there, it is implemented, and it is part of our part master data and document type data. And last one I have here in the slides is going to be the generation of certificates. So I mentioned earlier, for companies that work with, in the aerospace business, you may be required to generate a flight worthiness tag, an 8130 form. So we have those formats as part of our creative compliance solution. They're built in. So no longer do you have to, create them manually in an Excel template, fill them out, make sure that you don't have any, typing errors in the document. It can be streamlined and fully created right off the application. There are some validations that need to happen. The job needs to be at a certain stage. The person that generates the certificate has to have a particular quality role. So there are definitely, safeguards in place on who and when the certificate can be generated, but it generates right off the system information. So it's just part of the application. It's available in 6 different formats for different regions: the United States, Canada, Mexico, Brazil, China, and the European Union. Correct me if I'm wrong. I know I have some of my peers in the webinar, so feel free to correct me in the chat if I missed any. Now, the other certificates we can generate is a certificate of conformance, which is a little bit more generic, so to speak, because it applies to, many different industries. But it has all the key information available, serial numbers, lot numbers on the goods that were produced, and it's generated in a PDF right off the application as well. And it can be generated at time of shipment, or at any other timing of your process. So yeah, those 2 are available. And there were other challenges in our list, and those I'm gonna address in our live environment of the application. So I'm gonna switch gears a little bit here and bring up my Kinetic interface. And of course, you're looking at the system right now in my homepage. Some of you may not be in Kinetic yet, but this is what it looks like. This is my homepage. And one of the points I had there in our common challenges related to supplier certifications and managing that. So instead of showing you a slide on that topic, I'll bring up our actual supplier screen and just give you a quick tour of the section that we've incorporated here to outline any supplier survey details. So these survey codes could be really anything you need to track from a certification standpoint. It could be an ITAR certification, AS9100, anything that has date factors and that could impact the status of your supplier account as far as you being able to engage in business with them. So you can track certification reference, when it was certified, and of course, the expiration date. Optionally, you can choose to generate any new POs as unapproved if any of the certifications is in an expired status. So that way your buyers will know that there's something they need to take care of from a paperwork standpoint before sending new purchase orders out there. And that's optional, right? Because not everybody wants to, hinder the buying process, but it's a choice you can make as part of the compliance solution configuration. Yeah, you can set these up on the supplier record, and then you also have a dashboard available that will show you all your suppliers, and it has some conditional formatting in there, highlighting in red anything that is already expired, and also highlighting in yellow something that is within the horizon of coming up close to expiration. That horizon you establish back in the supplier screen, so you can see Acme here is a couple months away from having to renew their certification, so that's why it's showing up yellow. So it's just a way to kind of keep you guys on top of that and be proactive, so you don't have to wait until the last minute to get those certificates up to date. And again, part of our compliance solution takes care of that particular challenge. Another challenge we're going to talk about here is around shelf life management. So standard kinetic functionality provides you with lot tracking and the ability to have an expiration date associated to the lot. But now we've added controls here in the company configuration that I'm navigating to. These are some you can set up to, at the user level, either display a warning or stop them completely from completing material issue, customer shipment, or PO receiving transactions if the expiration date of the lot falls within this horizon threshold. So, if you're issuing a material to the floor that is, a week away from expiring, maybe you want to alert the user, maybe you want to stop them. Same on the receiving side. You want to be warned if the supplier is giving you something that's only going to be good for 30 days. Maybe you want to stop that. So you can take advantage of these controls to further enhance the transaction control on shelf life controlled items. On top of that, we also have out time tracking. Without getting too much into the weeds on that functionality, it enhances the shelf life management for situations where you have items that need to be in a controlled environment, whether it's a freezer or something of the like. There's quite the functionality in place to help you manage the different cycles of going in and out of the controlled environment, how long it can be out of the controlled environment. So definitely something worth looking into deeper if that's a requirement you have in your business. And it's part of our, again, grander offering around shelf life control. Now, kind of going back here to the challenges, another one I had on the list was around deliverable document packages. So because I'm already in the company configuration, you can see I have a section here where I can determine what documents to incorporate in my deliverable. So when we get to a customer shipment, we're going to have the opportunity through a command to just generate a nice compiled zip folder with all the documents found in relation to the finished good that we're sending out to the customer. Here in the company configuration, you can determine if you want that routine to bring up all the document types or maybe all the ones that are flagged for shipping documents. You have some choices there, even down to a specific document type if you want to get more specific. And also whether it looks at the full bill of materials or maybe just up to the single level. So these are just choices to determine how the system is going to do that document binding. But as far as executing that, we are going to go to our customer shipment entry screen, and I'll show you exactly where that takes action. So this is just a packing slip I created prior, and I have a little folder here called my creative shipping docs. Part of my configuration is defining where I want those to be generated. So they'll show up here in a second. But as you are going through your shipping process, generating your certificates and everything that needed to go, we have this shortcut right here. And in this case, I just have one line in my shipment, so I can just go in and say, generate my package, say yes. It goes through the process of doing that document lookup based on my configuration details. And then it created my little zip folder right here. You can see it was just created a second ago. So if we expand that, it found all sorts of documents, right? It found some PDFs, some Excel documents. So it's really just looking, in my case, all the document types found within the bill of materials of my finished good. Because I had previously generated my flight worthiness tag, you can see that shows up as part of the collection of documents right there. So that's represented there. Same with my certificate of conformance. And it also generates a log file outlining where all those documents came from. So if it found it in relation to a job, to a part revision, to a material, or like a component lot, you can see the reference to the lot number. So if you've done your due diligence and you've followed best practice and attached those documents at the right step in the process, whether it is at receiving, getting the material search, we're attaching them to the lot. We're getting, quality documents as part of our production process. We're attaching them to the job. So if you are doing that good, file collection action throughout, then the system will be able to find them. And of course, there's always opportunity for a person to review that document package, make sure that nothing was missed before we deliver it to the customer. But the actual document lookup and the compiling takes a lot of work of people's day, right? Because this is something that would normally require someone to go through a filing cabinet, physical or electronic, and make sure that we're, retrieving all those important files and putting them together. So definitely a quite a time saver. And again, part of our compliance solution. Now, another element that I had there in my common challenges related to time controls. And this specifically relates to companies that work with project-based engagements, right? Where you are charging or billing the customer for your time, right? Whether it's design services, engineering services. So that's where we commonly see the DCAA compliance requirement come through, because it's all about cost allocations, right? Making sure that the cost is being appropriately applied to the right contract. So part of those requirements incorporate controls around the time entry process. So if you, are putting in a timesheet as an engineer, as a designer, only the timesheet user should be allowed to make changes to that record. We also have strict rules on having a documented reason for changes of a timesheet. So it's quite strict as far as controlling the updating of data. So for this, I'm going to bring up my timesheet entry here, just to kind of show you a quick example of that. Well, first of all, the moment I pulled my time entry, there seems to be a recent update to my timesheet that was performed maybe by my supervisor. So that's one of the first things to note here. If my supervisor has recommended a change in my timesheet because maybe I'm putting the wrong hours, or something needs to be corrected, the change doesn't just automatically get applied. It goes back to the owner of the timesheet and requires their approval. So and then of course it creates that electronic trail of the owner acknowledging that requirement. So you can see that shows up immediately right here, and then I can just say, I approve it, or no, I do not approve it, and it kind of reverts back to the original state. So you saw that the moment I pulled up time entry. Now, let's say I want to make a change to, a timesheet that hasn't been posted, of course. Remember that those rules still are followed, just natural ERP rules. But if I want to make a change to a record here, and I'm just gonna, update some hours. When you submit the changes, because we have those audit trail controls in place in relation to timesheets, I get this request for a reason, incorrect time enter or correction, whatever justification we need to have there. And now we can acknowledge that. So just controls that are there because the government requires them, and we have implemented them as part of the process. Now, this is only, again, applicable for companies that go through that DCAA review, and that's why part of our company configuration allows you to enable those controls only when needed. So if you have the compliance solution installed in your environment and you are not subject to DCAA, you don't need to turn those features on, only when your contracts are actually calling for that. So it's a feature that you can optionally turn on. And it also applies for data collection entries, right? So we've also incorporated that for any work that's coming in and that is directly related to a manufacturing effort. So let's see. So I'm going to do a quick recap here just to make sure we addressed all our challenges that we were talking about. So originally, tracking contract compliance spec, material traceability, change control, first article inspections, identifying CUI data, generating certificates, generating a customer deliverable document package, managing supplier certifications, shelf life management for materials, and labor controls. On top of these challenges, I also took you through the enhanced corrective actions. So it's one that I hadn't identified here, but you took the chance to see. These are all functionally focused, elements that you would take advantage of by, utilizing our creative compliance solution. And this practical strategies and applications have come to be based on what we hear from our user community, right? So our product development team is constantly, looking into what other challenges we need to address, what changes need to be implemented. So it's always kind of on our radar where to continue to grow. To summarize here, in our solution, this is a quick snapshot of everything that we cover so far on top of the standard Kinetic ERP solutions. A lot of these we've already talked about, but this is just a quick snapshot for you guys to look at in the recording of this webinar. If you need to get a quick slide to show it to your team, this encompasses really well what our compliance solution can address. Looking out into the future of this compliance solution, there's good list in our roadmap. That's why I put in the safe harbor at the beginning, because these are just some of the things coming up in future releases. So we have the concept of conditional operations coming in. So these are controls that are planned to be built into the job operations and how your team on the shop floor can log in or not to start production activity in a particular step. Because out of the box, Kinetic allows you to just, start operations out of sequence. So if there are controls you need to implement where you're saying, I can't start step 20 if I haven't completed step 10, or that type of kind of relational conditional, we have in our roadmap to incorporate those rules and controls. So that is something that we're looking to have here coming up. Also, the ability to do lot to serial matching. So out of the box, Epicor Kinetic provides serial matching capability, a child to a parent. But as of today, there isn't a way for us to essentially create a direct relationship between a child lot and a parent serial number. We can get a good sense of that by the traceability we have in issuing lot numbers to a job. And if we are making a job where we're building one thing, then we do get that relationship just naturally. But if you have a job where you're building more than one finished good, and you want to have the ability to do that matching lot to serial, then that's something that we are looking at into the future to bring in, as well as having a more general denied party screening feature. Some of our customers have implemented this different ways, but we're trying to come up with a denied party screening solution that we can just offer to our users in the compliance world. So something that is more established and kind of just a standardized integration. So So that's something we're also looking into. And also expanding the source inspection. So today we have the concept of like a DCMA source inspection type that happens at time of shipment, where it stops the shipment unless there is a specific approval documented. But we're expanding that to allow for more than one source inspection, right? To give you that flexibility of having multiple reviews and controls in place. So that's something that's being enhanced and is also part of our future. And last but not least, enhancing our DMR process with tasks. So you saw something similar in the corrective action. You know, we've implemented the concept of workflows and task sets in relation to the execution of a corrective action, but now we're looking to have something similar come in through the DMR process, the discrepant material record. Because as you may already be aware, standard functionality is pretty straightforward, right? It just has a couple of check boxes, maybe some comment fields. So if we want to have it incorporate more actionable items, that's something that we're looking to bring over into DMR processing. So that's just a little bit of a sneak peek of what is coming up in the roadmap as it relates to you know, the compliance solution in the operations side of the business. So here we are. How are we doing on time? Doing a quick time check on myself. I think we're in a good spot to maybe open it up for questions. So let me just pull up my chat and see if we have anything that's come through there. Let's see. I think we're good there. Let me see, Mary Chris, do you have any showing up for you? I don't think I have access to the full transcript here. Okay, wait, I see one coming in. So here's a question. Do you have any functionality to support export controls? Okay, that's a great question. So we do, and that's another one of our most common features. So at the time of you know, the part configuration in Part Master, you can identify items as being export controlled or ITAR controlled. So there's going to be flags that allow you to identify that at a Part Master level. Also at time of order entry, especially if you are building things that are kind of more on the fly, that don't necessarily already have a part record in place, you also have those flags available there to identify it. If the item is you know, flagged as an export controlled, then you will be given the opportunity at time of order entry to associate a license for that customer for, you know, that country of destination. So we actually have an export license maintenance menu item where you can document all those certificates or any documentation your customers have provided to prove that they're licensed, and there's going to be expiration dates associated to that. So when you associate the export license to the order line in sales order entry, it's there for reference, right? It's not a hard stop. It doesn't require it for you to be able to enter the order, but it does get enforced at time of shipment. So maybe your order was entered in March, and you know, the shipment's not going to take place until October. So the true validation happens at time of shipment, because by that point, maybe the license is no longer valid. So we revalidate that prior to shipment. If it's expired or not in place, then the system will prevent the shipment from being completed until you update it to a valid, effective license. So it's something that is part of our compliance solution, and it is you know, already available as part of what's out there in the field. Let me see any other questions come through. Okay, so here's a question. A year ago or so, we were looking into MRO package. Is that part of A&D? Has that package been implemented in Kinetic UI? Okay, so MRO, it's kind of its own branch. So as of right now, it is not part of the compliance solution. So Gina, I'll make sure to follow up on you, following up on that with you directly, because we have some initiatives kind of being considered for MRO. So I'm sure our product development team would be glad to have that conversation with you. But yeah, it is something that we're still kind of working towards, but it is not currently part of the compliance solution that we've discussed so far. All right, so looks like there are no other questions coming in right now, but definitely feel free to kind of, meditate on what we've discussed. And if you come up with any other questions, we'll be glad to follow up on them after today. Now, so this event that you attended was our episode 1 of our Navigating Compliance series for Aerospace and Defense. We are going to be publishing the schedule for our next episode, which is going to be focused on government accounting. As a sneak preview of that, government accounting and DCAA is very present in our minds here as we work with companies that are getting into contracts that are more than just manufacturing product, but also providing services to the government. So this is just a quick snapshot of the different topics that we may address here in the government accounting session coming up. So please stay tuned for that. We'll be sending out communication around that and, publishing scheduled and in our social media and all that. So be on the lookout for that. And I think that wraps up today. If you think of any questions, if you need any more information, please feel free to contact us, specifically Mary Chris, who was kind enough to set this all up for us. You have her email here in the slide. Please reach out, and well, thank you very much for joining. Thank you. We really appreciate you spending some time with us today.
Thanks, everyone.